So welcome everybody to our Saturday morning webinar. My name is Judy Feldhausen and I'm co-hosting today with my good friend and cohort, Bob Wischmeier.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we are continuing our webinar series today with our 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And Bob, if I'm going in and out, please let me know because I'm getting some feedback on my end.
Oh yeah, you sound good though, Judy. Right now.
Okay, awesome. So this webinar series, we're actually on chapter 10 of this book, which means that we've been working on this book for about a year, which to me is just amazing.
Yeah, I think so too. It's 10 months of webinars.
It is 10 months of webinars. And John Maxwell does such an amazing job with his books. And one of the best things that I believe he does is actually promote conversation. So when we're talking today about the law of connection, it is certainly based on what John Maxwell says in his book, and I would suggest anybody go out and buy the book. And as a caveat to that, this is really Bob's and my personal experiences and things that have happened in our life that we are bringing out into the book. So this isn't exactly if you've been with us the past 10 months, this isn't exactly what John Maxwell says. It is overall, but we lead and put our own kind of nuance to what we're going to say. And just like after this chapter becomes my favorite, I actually live with the chapter for the week as I and Bob are developing this webinar. So I'm asking myself all week long questions that John Maxwell brings up and thoughts that I have. And so this week, I've been really thinking about connection and making better connections as I go about my business and my personal life, and or am I making interactions that do not make connections that count, where I'm not making an impact on people? Because that's one of the biggest goals that I have is I believe we all make an impact on each other, either positive or negative, and I of course want to make that connection positive. So John Maxwell really talks about the basis of this chapter is the heart comes first. Isn't that true, Bob, that most of what we do and the connections that we make, we really lead with the heart?
You know, Judy, especially, you know, when we look at our Synergy business, it's a network marketing business. It's all about people. You know, when you create your business another way, say through internet or something like that, you know, you can use a lot of facts. You can use all kinds of resource tools to promote your business. But generally speaking, network marketing, the things that we're doing, especially where we're so product oriented, it comes from a person to person, you know, nose to nose, eye to eye kind of contact. And people know, people feel things, and the heart comes first. You know, and I know we all say this all the time, but it's you know, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and we'll probably repeat that before we're done today. But you're absolutely right. That personal connection that you make, a personality connection, it makes all the difference in the world, Judy.
It does. And as I was growing up, I don't know how the rest of you were, what your childhood was like, that as I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of strong connections. In my family, it was the children are seen and not heard.
Yeah. That's how it was at my house too, Judy. There's no question. And Bonnie and I've had this conversation many times. We were there, but we stayed in the background. And I mean, in the family that I grew up in, that was survival for me. Was staying out of the way.
Mm-hmm. And as I grew up and started to become a leader, even in high school and beyond, I had to learn certain skills about how to make good connections. And so, although this part is not in the books, I really wanted to share some of the things that I did to make better connections, because I know when someone would just say to me, "Oh, just lead with your heart." I'm like, "Okay, great. What does that mean?" I'm not sure what that means or how to do that. So there's just a few things that I jotted down that I thought really helped me to develop how to become a better leader through leading through my heart. And the first thing was to look at the person, really look at them. I was taught that you look at the person with their right eye, I don't know if that's true. I don't really do that. I look at the person in both eyes. But it really helps to give you a sense of how they're feeling, and it helps us to connect eye to eye, person to person, so that we can convey my concern and I can understand, what they're feeling when we're looking at them eye to eye. Also, to listen attentively, and we've really got a webinar that understands about listening. So if you get a chance, go ahead and listen to that. It's archived in the Global Health Makeover website. But really, when you listen to someone, you want to hear the meaning beyond the words. And don't listen just to respond. How many times have you actually been hearing someone and you're waiting for them to finish so you can answer them? That's not really the way to listen. Really understand what they're trying to say and ask questions about that. And so number 3 really is ask questions. Yes, Bob?
I'm just going to interject. Sometimes if you're in a bigger meeting and we find ourselves in sometimes we're just in small groups or with individuals, but sometimes we're in relatively large meetings. And I know Tammy Hester is the note-taking genius in the world, but I take notes as well. And oftentimes in the process of taking notes, I've written down something. It may not have been exactly what was spoken from the pulpit or from the stage, but it's what the impression that I've received for me as I've listened attentively to what's being said. So I may jot down something that it just only applies to me, but it's what came into my conscious thinking as I was listening back to you.
Right. And you can really understand a lot more if you really listen attentively. And then go ahead and, as you're listening, ask questions. And when we're saying open-ended questions, an open-ended question simply means that the answer is not a yes or no. It has more words to it. But when you're asking questions, use those types of questions that include interest and concern with the person. And that's going to help to deepen your connection. And also, you want to visualize that they are wearing a sign around their neck that says, "We FM." And I learned this several years ago, and I just really have taken it to heart. So, "We FM" is what's in it for me. So if you're looking at the person and they're having that sign around their neck, then you are thinking differently about how to help them and not how to get what you want. And as a leader, we really see the possibilities of what they are capable of. Hey, Bob?
Yeah, I'm here. I just was jotting that down. What's in it for me? I've heard that before, but it's been a long time. So thanks for sharing that. I just wrote that bit down in my notes. Yeah.
Awesome. And the other thing, I think leaders believe in the people they are leading sometimes more than they believe in themselves. And especially as we get new distributors are really guessing their decision. They have little knowledge about the product or the company, and they have barely any confidence. And as a leader, we need to see the possibilities in them of what they are capable of and not the insecure person that they are today. So really believe in their capabilities. I think this part is so important, isn't it, Bob?
Well, it is. And I don't know how many times through the years I've said to people, you maybe don't know everything there is to know about cardiovascular health, but you know enough. You maybe don't know everything there is to know about this compensation plan or about microbiome research, but you know enough. You know enough to get started. You know enough to, to call on your sponsor to assist you. You know that the products work. You have a passion for them. You know enough. Get started. Believe in yourself, and move forward. And we'll fill in the blanks. If you don't have an answer to a question, one of us will help you with that. So yeah. Will help people to believe in themselves.
Yeah, it's so important. And then along with that belief, we really have to challenge them to get to their next level and help them know what the next step is, because they've never been on this journey before. They don't have a map. We have the map, and we have to give them the next turn, whether it's left, right, straight ahead, or maybe even sometimes backwards. We need to be able to help them and challenge them to get to the next place.
Well, it's, you're totally right. And I've mentioned this before. It's been a long time ago, but I got a call one day from Stu Rutter when he was vice president of their Sincerity, and he said, Bob, do you realize how close you are to team leader? And he said, you're within whatever it was. It wasn't very much, a little bit of volume. And he said, you're going to hit team leader. And, I got in there, I got looking at my volume. I had a couple of days left. And when I realized how close I was to hitting team leader, that, Stu challenged me to make that effort. And I did, and hit team leader. And, I have never forgotten that. First of all, the fact that someone from corporate was watching my volume and concerned about me, wanting me to be able to have that pin level advancement was a huge thing. But that simple little challenge from Stu, that made all the difference. What if I hadn't paid attention to that, But I did. He challenged me, and I moved forward, and I hit team leader. And, it's ancient history now, but it was helpful then.
That's so true. And our leaders help see that what is ahead of us when we can't see it ourselves. And acknowledge success. That is so important. Yesterday, I got a gift in the mail from Synergy for being Elite Honors qualified again. I don't know how many times, but I got another gift for being Elite Honors qualified. And it was just a good feeling to know that, gosh, they notice. They notice that I've been consistent and working hard. And when you do give a compliment, don't just say good job, but go deeper on a personal compliment. So bring something personal into it and acknowledge the tiniest of successes when it's hard for someone. So if someone has not made a lot of sales calls or talked about the product and presentations acknowledge that when they call and say, hey, I just made my first presentation or my 20th presentation and I'm feeling really good about it. Say, I know that was so hard for you. And good job for doing that part of it.
Well, you know, Judy, you're the one who taught me that it's really important that we celebrate. You know, there are a lot of things in life that leave us feeling a little bit dull, a little bit like, oh, brother, you know, and yet we do need to celebrate our successes, even if they're little things. And it's important, I think, in life to take a good hard look, you know, interview yourself from time to time and see where you need to make changes, etc. But we don't need to beat ourselves up, and I think that's the difference there, is that we take a look at things and recognize the good in what we've done, recognize the good in others, speak to that, and celebrate those little successes. It's important. It's important to all of us.
It absolutely is. And the last thing that was really important to me as being in a network marketing company is to feel a part of the team. And we're so fortunate in Synergy Worldwide that we have an amazing corporate team that supports us, that listens to us, that is there in customer service all the time to help and guide us. And as a recruiter, it's also important for us to create a team like we have in the Global Health Makeover team, that we are all part of something bigger. And when you feel part of something bigger, at least for me personally, I try harder. And when I fail, I feel that I have let the team down, not just me. So it's really like being a part of a family. I guess that's why we call it our Synergy family, right, Bob?
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you. It's perfect. Well, all right, let's move forward.
Absolutely.
So Judy mentioned that, you know, when we go through these, when we do these presentations, it isn't just completely right out of John Maxwell's book. We have to add things that come from our own personal experiences, our own personal lives, and that's what we do. We just, you know, in order to, you know, facts tell, the stories sell. And I know throughout this book, throughout all of John Maxwell's writings, he makes reference after reference to his personal life experiences, much of which was in the field of running different organizations, different churches, and his ministry. And from time to time, I mention, and I will mention, an experience or two from my previous ministry as well. I wanted to start, though, with regard to this public and private connections, one at a time, that this need to communicate and to connect with people. And I had a great love in my heart, and this is not just a political thing, but I loved Ronald Reagan, and I freely admit that. He was considered the great communicator. People called him that all the time. And I was reading a little note about him. It said that his former speechwriter, Peggy Noonan, said that when Reagan used to return to the White House from long trips, and the staff heard his helicopter landing on the lawn, everyone would stop working, and staff member Donna Elliott would say, "Daddy's home." They couldn't wait to see him. You know, sometimes in business, employees just dread it when their boss shows up. Ronald Reagan's people felt encouraged, and the reason they did was because he connected with them. His personality connected with them. He really was a great communicator. And as I was reading in John's book here, John Maxwell's book, he makes the comment that one key to connecting with others is recognizing that even in a group, you have to relate to people as individuals. And I believe that with all my heart. It's key is being able to relate to individuals. So I've got a couple of things, or several things I want to go through here, but I'm going to be quick because we're kind of up against it time-wise. But you need to be able to connect with yourself. Be confident. Be yourself. John Maxwell makes a really interesting statement. He said, people don't heed the call of an uncertain trumpet. Never heard that before. But that really resonated with me. You know, you need to be confident about the things that you're sharing. Stand up, share. I always say that we need to be bold but humble. People recognize that. That's really important. We need to communicate with openness, with sincerity. People can smell a phony a mile away. Isn't that true? I mean, Judy, do you see that too when people are not being honest with you? They're just being a phony. Can you feel that as well?
Bob, I cannot only feel it, but there are times when I am doing something in a group and I get into that place and I can feel that I'm getting into it and that I'm not being sincere because I want to get through something or do something. And I then go to this place of, oh, I'm not really looking at you, I'm looking through you, which I was taught when I was in drama to not actually look at your audience. So I find myself going back to that a lot, that I look at people over their heads, and it doesn't help with connection when you're doing that.
No, it doesn't. No, it takes you out of the picture. Nothing's more effective, I think, than sincere, accurate praise. And nothing is more lame than a cookie cutter compliment. People get it. Authentic leaders connect. And I learned both of those things from my sponsor. I almost hate to say that, but it is true. You can smell a phony a mile away. You need to learn to know your audience, you guys. This is extremely important as well. Learn people's names. Find out about their histories. Years ago, and I can't even remember how many years ago, back in the mid-'80s, I guess, I had a ministry, and I had a meeting. It was a Saturday night meeting. It started at 7 o'clock, and at about 20 to 7, I had a guest there, influential, minister from back east, and he was there with me. He was actually presiding over this big. We had about 900 people there for that meeting, and he said, "Bob, walk me through here. Introduce me to a few people." Maury Schoaf was his name. He was a professor back east, and so Maury and I started walking through this big auditorium and a chapel area, and I started introducing him to people, and I introduced him literally to every single person we walked by. I knew every one of them. I knew their name. I knew a little bit about them. Truth was, I could have told them some history about all of those people. But we talked to probably 50 or 60 people walking through that chapel area to go take our seats up on the stand to start this big meeting. He turned to me and he goes, "Bob, I learned a great lesson tonight from you. The importance of connecting with people, knowing your people. It's hugely significant." I had a friend there in Montana. Her name was Maureen Hughes. She passed away here at, I think she was like 99 or 100 years old. I loved her. She was the coolest lady ever. She was a star tennis player when she was a kid. She was old. When I talked to Maureen Hughes, and every time I talked to Maureen Hughes, I'm telling you, I absolutely knew that I was the most important person in her life. It's just the way she talked to me, the way she connected with me. But you know what? She did that with everyone. Everybody knew that they were her favorite. I'll never forget that. What does the audience care about? That's more important than what you're thinking about. So we need to learn to know our audience. That's fair to say, isn't it, Judy?
Well, it is, Bob. And one of the ways that I like to do that, not necessarily if I'm speaking or even part of the leadership team of where I am, but I actually go around and meet the people in the audience. If I'm just a participant, I like to talk to people, find out why they're there, what about them, where they came from. So when you see me at a Synergy meeting, I don't go in and sit down. I go in and start talking to people. And I learn sometimes more from those conversations than I do from what is presented out in front.
So often that's really where the magic is, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You go out, you work the room, you meet people, shake hands, talk to people. It's like with Aaliyah Frank is going to be on our call on Monday. I knew who she was. I'd heard her on the conference calls before. I'd seen her picture. But when we went to that last Synergy event, when I saw her, I went to her. I shook her hand. I looked her in the eye. I told her who I was. We connected personally for the first time. And now we are very good friends. It makes all the difference.
It really does.
Just kind of moving along real quick, guys. You need to live your message. You need to practice what you preach. I think that's so important, to be a product of the product. You know, Dane is a perfect example of that. That's where the credibility comes. You need to go where your people are. You know, I learned a long time ago, and seriously, I've interviewed literally hundreds of people in the course of my ministries and my business, etc. I've interviewed a lot of people, and I learned a long time ago, when I wanted to have a desk between me and that other person, or whether I wanted to sit really close to that individual, you go to where they are. You sit close enough to make it personal and real if you need to, or you scoot back a little bit, whatever you need to do. And you focus on people. I think one of the, not yourself, I think one of the number one problems that inexperienced leaders, inexperienced speakers have is they talk too much about themselves. That's, you know, my former sponsor, my previous sponsor, would spend the first 15 minutes of every conversation telling about how much money he used to make. It used to drive me crazy. Our conversation had nothing to do with how much money that guy used to make. It had everything to do with what we were doing that day. So we focus on people, not on ourselves. We believe in people. You know, Stephen Covey tells that remarkable story about a special needs custodian who created quite a remarkable network marketing business because he used his sponsor to help him. His sponsor believed in him, and they moved forward with it. And we offer direction. We offer hope to people. When you give people hope, you give them a future. It's one thing to communicate to people because you believe you have something of value to say. It's another to communicate with people because you believe they have value. So, Judy,
that is so true. And, you know, one of the things we learn along the way is that all of this is not necessarily easy. There's a big challenge involved in becoming a great leader and going through those tough times with our team. And when you can do that, the result is amazing. I mean, I can still remember Jean LaValle, Tammy Hester, and myself in Detroit, in the bad section of Detroit, lost because we could not find the police station, and having to stop in a poor gas station and ask for directions, and we were terrified. But that experience alone really connected the three of us, and we are great friends because we got through the challenges of the inner city of Detroit.
Yeah, but the thing is that Tammy was carrying, so yeah, that. I was going to say, you know, I'm looking at this slide here, you guys, and my wife Bonnie, I've heard her say it many times, especially to our children, that when you see a man on top of a mountain, you can bet he didn't fall there. Yeah, you got to climb to get to the top, just like these guys are doing.
That is so true. And when you have a team to help you get to the top and overcome the challenges along the way, there are stronger connections.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So what are the results of all of this? You know, when we stop and think about the results of really connecting with people and loyalty, you know, as it shows on our particular slide here, I think of Dane Orge. And the friendship that he and I have created the last several years. Dane and I were first introduced a long time ago. I worked with him a little bit, but when I made the decision and the determination that I was no longer going to work with my previous sponsor, I had a phone call from Dane the next day, asked me if I'd come on board and work with him. And we've created a great loyalty between the two of us. We're good friends. I sent him that picture of I think I mentioned that when we got started this morning, that crazy picture that I saw in a car window the other day. But the point is that, yeah, there's a loyalty that comes from connecting with people. Our ethics, the trust we have between each other, sincere gratitude. I get little notes from Dane all the time thanking me for the things that I do, the belief that we have in one another. I think it's important that we never underestimate the importance of building relational bridges between ourselves and the people that we lead. We have to do that. That's the nature of the law of connection. Always touch a person's heart before you ask him for a hand. So important, Judy.
It is, Bob. And when we look at strong connections, we really have to remember that when we're leading ourselves, yes, we do use our head. I believe that our heart's involved also. But to lead others, you really have to use your heart and put yourself in other people's shoes to know how to connect with them and figure out what they want, what they need, and who they are. So that as a leader, you can be connected to the team and to your family, because this isn't only good for business, this also works in our personal life.
It certainly does. And, we can give people all the information in the world relative to Synergy Worldwide, to the products that we market, to the business opportunity. We can give them every resource, every detail, every fact. But if we don't connect with those individuals personally, if we don't lead with our heart, and use our personalities, use the God-given gifts that we have within each of us to connect with people, they don't stay. They won't stay. There's no loyalty involved in that. So yeah, you guys, to lead others, use your heart. We connect with people. That's the key here. So Judy, thank you so much for helping.
Thank you, Bob. And if there's any questions or comments about any of that we shared with you today, please just join in and let us know.
I was gonna share one last little thought with regard to connecting with people. When you're in a small meeting, those small group meetings are awesome. I think they're probably the most effective form of getting the word out, is when you can get 10 or 11 people together in a room, and the camaraderie that's there. You do your presentation, and then you let the magic take over the room. Sometimes you're in a bigger audience, and I've had that experience a lot of times where there'll be, I've been in meetings where there have been close to 1,000 people, and I've been speaking. But I learned a long time ago how important it was that I identified individuals, even in a large audience. And I've called on people before from the stage, looked down. I significantly remember a meeting that I had, and I saw a little boy down in the front of in one of the front of the rows there, and when I got up to speak, I was the concluding speaker that day. I looked down and I could see him wiggling around and stuff. And I'd asked the guy next to me if he knew what his name was. And so I got his name. And when I stood up to speak, I looked right down at that little guy and I called him by his name, and he nearly jumped out of his chair. He looked up at me. He stood up. And I had a little conversation with him. That room was packed. The people in the back couldn't even see him because he's a little stubby little guy. But, he's a grown man today. I still have a relationship with him now. And through the years, I've watched that little guy grow up. And the closeness and the bond that simple little recognition in a giant audience made all the difference in the world. And so there's great power, I think, that we have as leaders, working with other people, recognizing people, connecting with people, finding a way to connect with people. And then the key, of course, is to act on that, make it happen. So Judy, back to you.
Well, thank you so much, Bob. That is so true. And people will remember you years down the road if you make a strong connection with them. It's so important. So we thank John Maxwell for writing this chapter and allowing us to talk to everyone today.
Yeah, do we have any questions or?
You guys do it. I really like Thank you.
Thank you,
Tracy.
Yeah, thanks you guys. Okay.
Good morning, guys. It's
Hi,
Donald, and I'm not asleep.
Hi, Donald.
Great presentation.
No, thank you. Thank you. It's always good to hear your voice, my friend.
Thank you very much, Bob. Thanks, Judy.
Thank you, Donald.